All right, you want to get this going and
Yes, because I want ice cream and walk my dogs.
is the ice cream reward for walking the dogs, or is that just a...
We're having to deal with these guys, man. Actually, they're well behaved for the most part. Walking them, that's a little on the new side.
It's still a thing, so...
Too much going on. So Rigel's now got a harness.
Ooh. All right.
Cool.
All right, you ready?
Punch it.
Good evening, cult members, and welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Josh.
There is a delay. This is gonna be fun. And this is the Rebel Files, your one-stop shop for everything Star Wars, news, notes, wild speculation, in-depth conversations, which is what we're gonna do tonight because there's hot garbage for news.
Yeah, we're in a Star Wars desert.
Well, we're all waiting for November.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's pretty much what it comes down to. And so there's a couple of things. There's some. Let's start here. Did you have any? I know that we haven't done a show in a couple of weeks because Janice and I went on vacation, and then we came home sick, and then you moved, and yep. so any Star Wars adventures that you did over that time period other than moving?
I pre-ordered Fallen Order.
Oh, I should probably do that.
I have an option. When I got rid of my Xbox and moved into the PS4 Pro, I had the option of going, do I want the subscription or do I want to pre-order Jedi Fallen Order? And I'm not, I had Xbox Live and it was I didn't do a lot of the freebies and all that type of stuff because every time they did something free it was kind of so I'm like, I'm gonna spend $60. I'll pre-order Jedi because that's a weekend alone in the cave, just So yes, that was my Star Wars adventure.
I will not be pre-ordering because I think we're gonna Phoenix Fan Fusion is doing their flash sale on the 3rd or the 4th, and I think I'm gonna spend my money for that because $50 for 4 days for a giant con is totally worth the money. So I think it's worth doing.
Yeah, that's for anybody who watches this who's in the Phoenix area. Heck, if you're not in the Phoenix area, and you come into the con. Jump on that deal. $50 all 4 days past the con. You'd be crazy not to. I ended up getting mine late last year, spent more than I needed to, still worth the money, but still spent more than I needed to. So if you got a 24-hour flash sale, take advantage of it.
Yeah, take it. They've announced, welcome to Phoenix Fan Fusion discussion. They announced that we're going to go to badges again. We're getting rid of the RFID things. We're going back to badges. They're not shipping them. So the line con, that part is going to be interesting. I'm hoping that they do the South building and we can have a whole discussion about that later. But that's
we should at some point.
Yeah. But that's where my pre-order for Fallen Order is. That's where my money's going to go for that because I have a St. Lucia trip to pay for too. So I'll be getting Fallen Order, but I'll probably be a couple weeks after it comes out. So, or when it comes out, the day it comes out, I won't get it early. That's fine. My Star Wars adventure as of late, I wore a shit ton of Star Wars shirts when we were in Vegas. But my adventure right now has been listening to Alphabet Squadron from Del Rey Books. And I'm really digging it right now. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. It's got spy elements. It's got space battle elements. It's after Operation Cinder, and there's rogue Empire units out in the galaxy causing havoc, but they're not part of the main group that went to the Outer Rim and stuff like that. And it's them putting the A-Wing, B-Wing, U-Wing, Y-Wing, putting them all together as one unit and stuff. And so it's been very interesting. I've been liking it. So, and I'm trying to get over a cold. So if I'm coughing in your ear, I'm apologizing right now. So You want to get into this?
Oh yeah.
All right. Let's get into this. The first news story we're going to spend 2 minutes on because it's shoes. Star Wars and Adidas have teamed up for a new shoe. They're gray and orange in color. They've got kind of a X-wing style markings on it. They have the Jedi symbol on them. I love Star Wars apparel. I've got a pair of Star Wars shoes. These are pretty ugly.
Yeah, here's the issue for me. I'm on the hook. I'm already on the hook. Anybody who knows me knows that I am 100% a Vans kid and an Adidas kid. I mean, if you really go back to my growing up, I mean, I'm an Adidas kid. You know, that's totally where it is. I've got like, you know, Vans and Adidas is what I wear. So you know, I kind of missed out on the Vans thing. The Vans designs didn't really appeal to me. You know, the Adidas ones do, in kind of that they're a little retro. You know, the way the color scheme is on it, they kind of harken back to some of the early releases, you know, back, you know, early 90s, 80s, back in the, you know, the hyper sport shoe craze. Oh, man, I might have to do it. I don't have an outfit that's going to go with it, but I'm pretty sure I could find a tracksuit.
The ones I have are the Pozu ones from the UK, kind of Chuck Taylor kind of style, the shorties. I really like them. They have another pair that I really want to get to, but these I just they didn't get me. They didn't grab me.
They don't call to you. They don't call to you. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, Vans is releasing a Nightmare Before Christmas line, and there were about 2 in that line. I was like, oh, you're saucy.
The Vans Harry Potter line is really good too. Unfortunately, the Ravenclaw ones that my wife wants to get are not good. They're about the probably worst ones.
Yeah, that actually really annoyed me because, you know, Ravenclaw, you know, and that's my whole house affiliation there. So I was like, oh, come on, guys, really? Why does Ravenclaw get the short end of the stick?
But the Gryffindor,
the Slytherin ones are cooler,
and the Gryffindor ones are pretty cool. They're high tops and stuff. But for these, you know, if I was a collector of all things Star Wars and collected all the merchandise and everything, then yeah, I'd have to get them. But for me, they just don't call to me. That's fine. They did start on Collider Live. They did start advertising for Heroes and Villains, and I think I sent you the link. They've got some bitchin' stuff on there that I really like. The one, I don't need another Star Wars shirt. They have one. It's the storyboard of the X-Wings flying towards the Death Star.
That one's cool. That storyboard's
so
cool.
Bitchin'.
And I mean, you know, and if all day I dream about Skywalker and I'm not into shoes, then, you know, it's got to be shirts.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone's got to be, you know, all day I dream about shirts, all day I dream about Skywalker, all day I dream about Star. There's about a million permutations. We can go with that. But yeah, dude, that's a dangerous website. It really is.
Yeah.
You know,
they had some cool backpacks, but I've got a really bitchin' travel backpack that just doesn't have anything on it, and so I can add on my pins to it, so that works out okay. But
pins and patches, old school.
Yeah. Okay, so there was a story that came out. It was last week, and people ran with it, and we're gonna mention it here because, like I said, there's not a ton of news going on. But there was a conversation in the Entertainment Weekly article about The Mandalorian, and the pictures that came out of that were really cool. But the one conversation that everybody seemed to grab onto was this idea that in The Mandalorian, they're going to explore the origins of the First Order. Now, they have talked about how The Mandalorian is 8 years after the Battle of Endor. And it's, you know, lone gunman, and we've talked about all that stuff. But Filoni was the one that was discussing the idea of Filoni and Favreau were talking about in this article how there's got to be a start for the First Order because there's a 30-year gap, and by the time we get to Episode 7, they all of a sudden got, like, you know, Death Star 3 and a giant fleet and all this stuff. And so I bring this up because I actually just want to discuss, do you think this is going to be the underlying story part? Or is it just going to be like everything else that's going to be happening that's outside of the main story, which is a wink and a nod to the audience that, hey, look, there is actually other Star Wars stuff going on?
Well, I mean, you know, you get into it, and, you know, if you look at the timeline, there's a lot of overlap potential that can exist. You can have overlap potential, obviously, with the creation of the First Order. That's going to be huge. In fact, I'm pretty sure you're going to see if anything else, you may see Werner Herzog's character actually, really discussing that and talking about it, because we're talking about Palpatine's essentially last command type of a situation, and the building up. Right, exactly. In this building of this hidden fleet. And speaking of Operation Cinder, that's another overlap area with Iden Versio, because she's alive during this time frame and she's active, having just come out of Inferno Squad. The years after, probably just having come out of Inferno Squad, knowing of Operation Cinder with her turn to the rebellion. Spoilers if you haven't played Battlefront 2. So there's that whole arc there. So there's a high probability that we could see a guest appearance by Iden Versio. And fun fact, the gal who played her in the game is alive and well.
And she's a super Star Wars fan.
Absolutely.
She is a super Star and a super gamer. So that's what it was really cool.
Yeah.
That she was. Yeah.
So Favreau, if you're watching the show, which you're not, you get too much to do. But if you were, there's an idea if you haven't thought about it yet already. I'm sure you have. Filoni's in the ear going, hey.
Season 2. They're already working on season 2.
Yeah, so. And that'd be dope. That'd be a dope plot arc. But back to the point, I think what we're going to see is Giancarlo Esposito's character and Werner Herzog's character. These are loyalists. These are diehard, born in the blood, Imperial loyalists, and we're going to see that mentioned in the First Order. And to your point, it might be something that's going to be just kind of passively mentioned.
Right.
But I don't think so. I really don't. The Empire's really, very. They're arrogant about it. They're like, haha, is what we're gonna do. So, yeah, I think we're gonna see mention for it. They've already discussed that they're probably gonna show the origins of the First Order. So, if nothing else, we're gonna get some of the backstory as to Palpatine, given the fact that it's coming out just before Rise of Skywalker. We may actually see a couple of hints that are going to lead right into that movie to give us the groundwork.
I think you might. I wouldn't be surprised if they did something along the line of there's a First Order officers at the cantina looking for a bounty hunter to track down stuff for the First Order, like that kind of stuff. It's like that, not a direct conversation or whatever, but like they introduce somebody, it's young Hux or something like that, or it's Hux and his dad, or it's stuff like that. I was trying to figure out this afternoon, I didn't get around to looking for it, the timetable, because after Operation Cinder and the Battle of Jakku, the rest of the Empire fleet goes to the Outer Rim, the unknown reaches, and remnants of the Empire are still around. That's how we're going to get some of these characters floating around. I'm wondering if the timeline works where this is pre-Battle of Jakku, and then you could be getting some stuff like Ray Sloan, like. Understand what I'm saying?
I don't know if it's pre-battle. Yeah, I don't know if it's pre-battle of Jakku. We said 8 years, if I remember right. It's 5 to 8 years. 8 years. I think that's just after Jakku, because the Jakku is the last holdout. Yeah. It was the final battle in that thing after post Endor and Cinder and everything. So I think this is probably going to be post Jakku, when we're in kind of that null space as to what's going on with the Empire.
Right.
They had their big defeat there. They kind of started retreating towards the Outer Rim, but it does make sense that they're going to have squads everywhere. Kind of keeping an eye on their assets and everything else. So we're going to see them go from superpower to the struggling to retain their power, and also acquisitions, supplies. They're going to be in the same position trying to find sympathizers. Anyone who's going to rally the cause. They
deal with that resistance. They deal with the First Order coming in and trying to work a deal with the base, and then they figure out what the First Order really is, because the stuff that happens with Hazian Prime all happens during that show. And so there, I like the idea, if you're going to do these kind of things in between Battle of Endor and Episode 7, between that third-year gap, throwing in little references of how the First Order is kind of rebuilding itself into this evangelical version of the Empire, which is really kind of creepy to say, but that's kind of what they are.
They're zealots.
Yeah. fire and brimstone kind of version.
Yep.
One of the cool things that did come out of the Saturn Awards was Jon Favreau, because he's talking about everything right now. He was at the Saturn Awards, and they were doing a quick little interview with him on the red carpet, and they talked about The Mandalorian for a second, and they said, is there something else that you would like to do? And he said, I'd love to do the holiday special, a live-action version of the holiday special. Sure.
Live action version of the holiday special. That's already been done. They already did a live action version. Now, I think what he was referencing the Boba Fett.
Yes,
the
which
Boba
is
Fett
what he's
sequence.
doing.
Yeah.
Which essentially is what he's doing. He's got the gun. He's got the what was the creature they showed in the trailer? I can't remember.
The lizard kangaroo that I can never
yeah. I can't remember the name. But yeah, like all of that. Like, of course he wants to do the holiday special. That's like he wants to do the cartoon version of the holiday special. But yeah, I don't know. If they did Life Day, if they modernized Life Day and made it for kids, and people were actually there and wanted to be there, it could be kind of okay.
It's not going to be the same. No B. Arthur.
That's true.
Unless we CGI her back in.
They have that technology. Actually, I was going to say Betty White. Have Betty White do it.
That'd be better. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I think I think to a degree, if he really wanted to do it, there might be a couple of, if he did do it, let's say, for example, he did decide he was going to redo a modern interpretation of the Star Wars Holiday Special. Okay, one, ditch the cheese, kids. It's lighthearted humor. Rian Johnson had some of it in there, which was good. Some of it was subtle. You can do some lighthearted humor, throwbacks, some deep cuts into it. But the concept, that's one thing that we really don't get to see in live action. I mean, we saw Kashyyyk in the prequels, and we got to see a bunch of Wookiees. We saw, Han freeing, Chewbacca and Solo. We got to see that backstory in there. But in the live action iterations, there's never been a whole lot of Kashyyyk. Not a lot about the culture. And let's face it, you got to kind of pay tribute a little bit to the dude who's been there most of the movies.
Right.
And even in the prequels. At least for one of them, anyway.
Jonas would love to do it. Like, he loves playing Chewbacca. So, he would totally be down for doing it. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, because with Disney Plus coming, they're going to have to fill content, and doing a Christmas special or a holiday special or a Life Day or New Year's kind of thing. Doctor Who does it all the time. So I'm not going to say it's not possible, but
Disney Animated does it all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Almost all the Disney Animateds have a holiday issue, and I mean, except for Mulan. I don't think Mulan has a holiday one. Thank God. Yeah. But in some iterations they've always done some more holiday thing. Does it make sense in the Disney universe? Absolutely. Do I think they could do something similar that's a tribute to the original one that doesn't exist? While still keeping it within canon and giving some decent platform. Absolutely. And you know what? You can call it a holiday special and not have it be Christmas.
Right.
It's just like Doctor Who takes place during Christmas usually. But you can always have it. You can always have it being just a one-off. This is your Christmas special. It's a Star Wars holiday special. It's a one-off story. Kind of like the breakup stories, the prologues or the intermissions in the Aftermath books.
Yeah.
And you can do it that way. You can have it be a quality product. And I think Favreau's got the gumption to do it, especially if you do Favreau and Filoni. I think they'd kill it.
As much as I think it could be fun to do, I'd rather have them spend their time working on the second season of Mandalorian.
Sure. Production times wouldn't take them that long, but I agree totally.
Yeah. Do it on the animation, because we know a bunch of animation stuff is coming. So do it animation wise. So let's. There's a comic that came out this week, and this is going to lead us into our main topic this week, which is going to be the redemption of Kylo Ren. And the comic is they're doing these one shots Snoke, Kylo, Rey, Rose, Poe, and they're one-issue comics from Marvel. The one we got the first one that's got the internet's all of flutters is the Snoke book, and it is about training Kylo. And I read it. It's a really, really simple read. I actually downloaded it from Cosmology today, and it's very weird. It's weird they led with this one. And the reason I say that is because it's humanizing Kylo, and you get to see Snoke's physical and mental abuse that he does to Kylo to get him to get into that rage tree that they talk about, and work on his fear and how fear leads to hate and hate leads him to greater power and stuff like that. So with that, there's been a ton of think pieces and conversations and all these different things about Kylo, and is he going to be redeemed in episode 9? So that kind of led us into a conversation this week. And so my first question to you, and this is kind of how we got here, is do you want to see Kylo redeemed?
Okay, see. Here's the thing. My first gut reaction is always going to be no. Let him be the bad guy. Absolutely, 100%. Let him be the bad guy. That being stated, you know for a fact that I'm a fan of the flip, where Kylo gets redeemed and Rey ends up going dark. I'm a huge fan of that arc because I think that really sets the tone for the Star Wars universe, where not all good guys are good, not all bad guys are always bad. Right. I don't know if Kylo can come back from it. I don't think he truly can come back from the murder of Han. But that being stated, you know, when we're talking about the fact that the Emperor is coming back, we don't know exactly which way, but the Emperor's got influence. You know, I think the only real plausible redemption arc for Kylo is that he no longer sees. Let me say this. Up until this point, he's kind of viewed the dark side almost in a way you would kind of a preteen to a teenager in their young male machismo. Like, I totally want to go out and do that and be a man and yada yada. So he's very gravitated into this side of it, thinking that this is the evolution. This is the best. This is him. He's a man. And I think realistically, what the shock and the awe is going to be is, dude, he's not as dark as he claims to be. He backed off the triggers, you know. He's hesitated. He's attacked consoles in rage, swinging his lightsaber around, destroying equipment, opposed to force choking the living snot out of random stormtroopers. So there is conflict in him. That's a given. We've seen it through the last 2 movies.
Right.
So I think he's going to get a big whiff of what the real dark side is. You know, we saw the conflict with Snoke when he saw Snoke's reaction. We've seen how he reacts to his parents. We've seen the conflicts with Luke and everything. And he has rage moments, but I think he's going to get a big whiff of what the dark side is really, really like. And he's going to realize that the dark side is responsible for a ton of genocide, you know, and that may be what redeems him. He may just finally say, like, you know what, I've had enough of this. This is completely wrong, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the things that I kind of was finding in the comic was it's Snoke telling him that he has fear, and that he needs to embrace that fear and use that rage. It wasn't Kylo doing it. It was Snoke telling him that this is what you have to do, and it, like I said, it really humanizes Kylo. Do I think he can be redeemed? Let me ask the question the way it was. Let me answer the question the way it was. I asked it. Do I want to see him redeemed? No. I want him. I want him to live. I want him to not be redeemed. I want him to go away. You know, go into exile, go into hiding, whatever it is. And then 15, 20 years down the line, we can come back, and he spent years and years and years building up that dark force energy and building an army, and we can come back in 20, 15, 20 years and have a full-on dark side, light side battle royale. Is really what I want to see. Now, we might be getting that with the Benioff and Weiss Old Republic series, with the formation of the Sith Empire and the Jedi Order and the Jedi Sith War and stuff like that. Do I think he can be redeemed, though? Well, yes, especially with what they're doing with this comic, and like you were saying, his inner conflict that he had, even in The Force Awakens. He's talking to Vader's helmet the whole time, going, I feel the pull towards the light. I think he's been one of those guys who's always been manipulated by somebody else. His father was an absentee father. His mom was an absentee mom because she was trying to help run the universe. He was given over to his uncle. His uncle saw all the dark in him. Not that the dark was bad at that point in time in him, but it was something he saw, and so he rejected him too. So he went to wherever he thought he was going to get love, acceptance, or whatever, and that was with Snoke. Much how like Palpatine did to Anakin, and the whole that history mirrors itself all the way through. So why is it not a big thing within Star Wars? Can he even be redeemed? Sure. I mean, everybody was. Anakin was redeemed, and he's done way worse than what Kylo has done. Knowing that we both are like, I don't want to see it. If it's going to happen, how do you see it happening? Do you see
I can't see it any other way outside, at least with the way they've set it up at this point. I can't see it any way outside of Palpatine's influence, and him getting kind of a wake-up call. I mean, at this point, and I guess this is going to be kind of the interesting part about Rise of Skywalker, because, like, to your point, he's been influenced this whole time. Something's always led him. Somebody else's puppetry, in one form or another, has always kind of led him down this path. And so now he's supreme leader Ren,
Right.
Now he has the First Order to himself. He's a man of his own devices. And it's going to be interesting to see how the past 3 years during this time jump has changed him.
Right.
Is there more conflict in him? Is he still wrestling with the decisions he's making? Because one of the rumors that had been flying around for a long time was that he's actually relatively benevolent with the First Order.
Yes.
And that's the
that
trick.
Too.
Yeah, and is it a ruse? Is this actually the light kind of pulling for him now that he's got no external influences? Is the big flip going to be he goes completely against the First Order? And he finally sees that over the course of this and redirects the purpose of the First Order. We know Star Wars has always been very, very cyclical. We've known that since the Old Republic, up to the original trilogies, there's always been the Jedi, the Sith, the War, the Redemption. It's always going to be. Well, the whole movie that's designed to put an end to the cycle, to kind of break that cycle that Rian Johnson was setting up with the dissolving, the absolution of gray. I really think that we're going to see the final hurrah of the dark side, and I think if Kylo's going to get redeemed, that's going to be it. He's going to officially see way too much, and it's going to push him over the edge. And maybe to your point, maybe that is the thing. Maybe he doesn't actually die. Maybe he doesn't redeem, but he's seen so much that he realizes he knows so little. That he takes Luke's cue and goes into exile and studies, and which does it sets groundwork for him to come back at a later point as the character and or Rey with it and everything else, because this is the end of the Skywalker saga, so the Ren and the Rey saga could potentially continue if they establish it correctly.
Right. They call it the Rise of Skywalker, and everybody has been saying, he's the last of the Skywalkers, and so having him rise and be, the redemptive one and actually be the one to kill off Palpatine would be an interesting story. If it's going to happen, or if we are going to redeem him, I want him doing it saving Rey. And I want it to be him saving Rey from the dark side. not saving her from Palpatine or from certain death or whatever it is. I want it to be Rey keeps touching the dark. She starts going down that path. And he's like, no, I've been down that path. I know what it's like. There's no future there for you. I'm already on that path. I can't come back. Please don't. And I think that kind of story arc, and that leads to my want for him to go into exile. She agrees. She comes back towards the light, touching the. I'm sorry, my nose is being all kinds of an issue. Summer colds, people. She comes back towards the light. He's the one that is redeemed from saving her from going towards the dark side. The Palpatine thing is very interesting, kind of knowing that he's probably, I won't say knowing, thinking that he's probably been the one pulling the strings for everything with rebuilding all the stuff that we've known about the unknown reaches and the Outer Rim and the rebuilding of the First Order and Snoke and all that stuff, that Operation Cinder, all of that kind of stuff. If Palpatine is manifested in a physical form, if Kylo kills him to save Rey, then we're just doing Empire or Return of the Jedi, and the internet and everybody's gonna explode. And I don't think I want that. I think redeeming him is okay. The more and more I think about it, redeeming him is okay. It's not what I want, but I'm okay with it. But it's got to be saving Rey from the dark side. I think there's the only way I would accept it.
And I think to your point, there's room in there for both ends of that. He's because he's seen what the dark side is capable of, and he's delved into it and everything else. And if Rey does go dark and he does redeem himself that way, a lot of those little tiny theories and questions could all come into play. And if they do it appropriately, I think that would be a good redemption arc if we're going to do it. But I totally agree with you, man. I really got to say that if he does that, I don't necessarily want to see him die off, because
Adam Driver's think there would be too good of an actor in that role.
Exactly. Especially when you see him like outside of the role, you actually realize how much he is acting when he does the role. Right. And right. I think it would be a waste of Kylo Ren if they just offed him in this movie. I think it would be a waste of the character. There's too much potential for him and his arc to go forward. So I really do dig the idea of him being done with it, going completely hermit and realizing that he needs to learn all the nuances of it, good, light, bad. And he goes off. He's like, I have to remove myself from the equation, to study this.
And that's something that nobody's done.
Right.
It's something that nobody in the Star Wars universe of canon universe has done. Yes.
Give him the long walk.
Yeah.
Judge Dredd reference. Give him the long walk.
Yes, absolutely. People are going to say, well, Luke went off and became a hermit. He didn't go off to become a hermit to learn about the Force. He went off to not be part of the Force. Right. And everybody who has gone off to learn about the Force has only done it from the light side version, from the dark side version. If he would to say, I've been down the dark side, I'm still pulled towards the light, I'm going to go do the long walk like you're talking about and learn about the Force overall and all the good, all the bad, all the light, all the dark, all the stuff in the middle, how other cultures look at the Force and what they call it. Have him be Messiah is not the right word, but the cleric going out to learn about all the religion and stuff like that. I think that would be really cool to come back in 10, 15 years when he's learned all that new stuff and be able. I'm just trying to find a way to leave Adam Driver and Kylo Ren in the Star Wars universe so we can come back around to it in a few years.
And I think it lends to it because they've taken little bits of the original storylines, the original expanded universe stuff in his character. And I keep forgetting which one because it's been forever since I read it, and I'm not 100% up to date anymore. But I believe it was Jason Solo or it was Anakin Solo. I'm not really sure which. One of the two who went dark ended up being like super powerful, like more so than Luke. And it was correct. I think it was Jason.
I think it was Jason because then somebody has to come in and sacrifice themselves to take Jason out.
Right? It wasn't Ben Skywalker. Damn it! It's been too long. Now I got to go back and look into it again. But I think Jason Solon is so. It makes sense for Kylo if they're going to kind of borrow elements of Jason and everything, to kind of go out and become the all powerful. He's still young in this series,
right?
So he's got plenty of room to grow. And Anakin got a chance to grow old. Luke got a chance to grow old. Han got a chance to grow old. They all grew old despite their transgressions. So I think you don't want to off him young. I don't think it's going to happen.
Do you like the self-sacrifice play a la Vader to redeem him?
I think it's another way to do it. There's got in any form of a redemption story, you can't just go off. There's got to be some pinnacle point to that story that causes that redemption. There has to be any form of redemption story. There's always a level of sacrifice in it. So I think to your point, based off what we've seen in the teasers and the visions and everything else of Rey. I think it makes a good statement. I think we may end up seeing that. We're looking at something that's kind of embracing topical things, talking about gaslighting and bullying and everything else that influences the actions of others. And for even his own character to get a redemption arc, to say that he's now overcome the abuse of his forebears and everything else and become this man who he's going to be. I think it's topical. I think it's poignant, and I think it's definitely a direction that they could move in. So I think it would be a good call for him.
I think it's. This kind of popped in my head as we're talking about it, and this is why we have conversations like this, is to have these kind of things. If they're going to set up Kylo in the outside canon of the books and stuff, with the books and the comics and stuff like that, and humanize him like they did in the Snoke series, and how he kind of gets he's kind of an afterthought for Han and Leia and all that kind of stuff, and having Rey be the one who finally is the one who goes out and says, I care about you, I want to be. She's already tried to do it once. She's already asked for that whole fight that they have in Snoke's throne room with them fighting side by side. And then at the end, she tries to get him to come to the light side, and he tries to get her to go to the dark side. And that's how we split the Skywalker lightsaber. So they've already had that kind of conversation. Is it possible that Rey is the one who actually is the first one to embrace him and say, hey, I'm here for you. I'm your friend. I'm not necessarily leading to Reylo, but to let him have a positive relationship with somebody. Is that actually something that you'd be okay with too?
No, I'm totally okay with it. They've given them aspects of Jason and Jaina Solo for the entire saga. There's been those little tidbits and things in there. They are, for lack of a better term, the Force twins. You have a light side, you have a dark side to it. I think, if anything, part of that plausible outcome is going to be, you're exactly right. It's not going to be Reylo. It's going to be, though, that, man, how deep do we want to go with this? The son and the daughter and the father. So we have that. You know what I mean?
But who's the father?
Palpatine. I don't know. That's the hard one. But if you just take the metaphysical approach on that, they're the yin and the yang, they're the light and the dark, they're the balance.
They are. And
with the whole destruction of the Jedi and the Sith, we may see them. They're both kind of redeemed to their own degree.
I love the Mortis arc. I love the idea of what they're talking about with the Mortis arc, because it goes into the depths of the Force. That's the Bendu we get in Rebels too. It's that idea. I love that concept. The problem is to try to explain the Mortis arc in a wedged full movie to end a saga. As much as I would love to see it, it'd be really hard to explain. But it totally is the Mortis arc.
But I don't think they necessarily have to explain the Mortis arc in order for them to achieve something with it. I think they can phrase it in a way similar to what Rian Johnson was driving at, in terms of the Jedi was extreme, the Sith were extreme. Now there's just Force users, and if the two of them kind of come together and they figure out that the balance between his conflict with the light and dark, her conflict with the light and dark, and they both realize that there is no extreme, that they just have to look at it in a matter of case-by-case basis. What's considered dark is based on perception, because many of the truths we cling to are based solely on our perceptions.
Yep.
So if they finally take the throne room scenario and kind of come back together and basically look at each other and basically say, like, you have points, and they combined remold what the concept of the religion is. That there is no extreme. This is all here.
Yeah, and that would be that would be a really cool cap to what the Star Wars what the Skywalker story has been. The Skywalker story from Episode 1 on to Episode 9 has always been the Jedi are absolutely right and the Sith are absolutely wrong, or vice versa. The Sith are absolutely right and the Jedi, and it's the two extremes of this religion the entire way. And so if you're going to have two characters who you've spent 2 movies and a bunch of books and a bunch of comics, having them both deal with both sides of that, one's much more light than the other, one's much more dark, but they have enough of the opposite side of the Force with them. I think that would be really cool ending. Like having the two of them, she stays, help rebuild the Force as a religion, and the Book of the Wills and all that kind of stuff, the Church of the Wills and all that kind of stuff. And Kylo, it goes off on this grand adventure to search the dark corners, the unknown corners of the Force. I think that's an acceptable ending for everybody. I think everybody's happy with all of that.
Yeah, and it is. And I think if we really take the title of The Rise of Skywalker, I think it doesn't necessarily have to the point that we've discussed in previous shows, I don't think it necessarily has to pertain to the Skywalker line. I think by stating The Rise of Skywalker, not The Rise of a Skywalker, or The Rise of this Skywalker, not The Rise of Skywalkers, it's The Rise of Skywalker. It could be just simply, it's a throwback to the Chiss and be the rise of Force users.
Yeah.
Or the rise of the Force. And essentially in that aspect, no Sith, no Jedi, because if you look at all the titles, it's been Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, things of that nature.
Yeah.
The Rise of Skywalker. It's no longer the one extreme, the other extreme. Now it is just the Force.
The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker. If you take those 3 and, like you're saying, A New Hope, Return of the Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, it's each one of them kind of has Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. Like they all have their kind of cyclicalness, for back of I'm making up words now. Cyclicalness of everything. I think I think we've stumbled on something that I didn't think that we were going to get to with this conversation about. Yeah, this is why we have these conversations. We start talking one way and we end up at the other place, and now I want to see it.
Yeah, and I mean, but it's true though. I mean, and this is the cool part that they've been leading up, and we've had these in-depth conversations about the Mortis arc and the War Between Worlds and how Filoni's been interweaving all of this throughout everything, and there's points to that. You've got all these threads. And now they're starting to come into one. So can they explain it without explaining it? Yes, I believe they can. And then if people really want to go, you walk out of the theater and you go, huh? And then you go back and you watch the stuff, the casual user might not have. And they go, So I think it's feasible. I think that's what they've been driving at. I think anything that we watch through Clone Wars, through Rebels and everything has been leading up to this point where we are no longer going to have a Sith and a Jedi. We're just going to have a ton of Force users who determine their own direction.
Yep. And then
that opens it up so much.
And then you come back factions. In 20 years and you have all the factions and the clan wars and you do Braveheart, that kind of thing. That kind of opens it up to a much bigger story to tell as you go forward. And I think that could be something that maybe even Rian Johnson's doing moving forward. So,
which could be great because I really think he did kind of weave a really nice version of that to a degree. We're seeing that the Force exists to other users. Maz Kanata, I'm aware of the Force, but I'm not a Jedi or a Sith. Right. And that was one of the big plays I think he had with The Last Jedi was realizing that the Force isn't just Jedi or Sith exclusive, kid. This is all encompassing. There are Force sensitive creatures out in the world. It's what you choose to do with it.
Showing a broom kid at the end nails that.
Mm-hmm.
And that. If you don't do that little epilogue at the end and them telling the story, the legend of Luke Skywalker, and then having Broom Kid grab the broom at the end, that if you don't have that scene, I think this conversation is completely different. Even if that was the story. That's what they want to go forward with the story. But throwing that little epilogue in, you're able to do everything that we're talking about. And if they don't do it, it's all messed up.
I agree. I think it's too obvious. I think that's the direction it's going to take. And I'm hyper excited for the movie because there's a number of different directions it could go. I think they're playing it very intelligently with what they're leaking out. They're keeping the conversation alive. We said it before, Favreau, not a dumb man. Filoni, not a dumb man. Lucas, not a dumb man. They've all had their speak in this and they've all had their say. So you were seeing the meeting of the minds at its best between what's going to happen in The Mandalorian and what's going to happen in The Rise of Skywalker. This is setting the tone for the rest of the saga.
Yep. I totally agree. So that's this week's show. Cult members and Rebel Files fans, let us know. We want to know, is Kylo redeemable, and B, how is he redeemable? Let us know in the comments. Let us also know if you believe in Reylo. I've been a Reylo guy for a long time. I've been a Reylo guy for a long time, but like we were saying, it doesn't necessarily have to be Reylo. It just has to be. I'm okay with her being the one to be there for him, kind of like that recovering friend from alcoholism or drugs or whatever, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So let us know in the comments: is Kylo redeemable? How is he redeemable? And also do all the things. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, share with your friends, do all that jazz. And I think that's it for this week. Hopefully we'll have some more news and notes for next week. If not, we'll make up some other story. And until next time, I'm over the Force.
And the Force is with me. Take care.